I never expected my brother's blind date to bring back my heartbreaking past. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day I heard her laugh again, the laugh that echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. The moment my heart stopped, caught between the thrill and the dread of returning to a life that wasn't mine anymore. We were at this bustling cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the sweetness of pastries. The kind of place where every corner holds a secret, and every whisper could unveil a mystery. I watched as my brother flipped through the glossy pages of his dating app, completely oblivious to the brewing storm in my chest. Then he looked up, eyes sparkling with excitement, and I felt the world tilt on its axis. "She's here," he exclaimed, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning, but my heart was racing for an entirely different reason. Because in that moment, I caught a glimpse of her dark hair cascading like a waterfall down her shoulders, eyes as vibrant as the emerald hills we once roamed together. The universe had a sick sense of humor, bringing her back into my life like this. I had buried her memories deep. Forced myself to forget the laughter, the plans we made, the way her fingers would intertwine with mine. And now, there she was, standing at the door with a hesitant smile, scanning the room until our eyes locked, time froze. My breath hitched. I wanted to turn away, to disappear into the crowd of strangers, but it was too late. The silence between us spoke volumes. Heavy, unrelenting silence that screamed of untold stories and unfinished chapters. My brother waved her over, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. She approached our table with that same confidence and grace, yet I could see a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Hi. I'm Sophie," she said, but the words hung in the air like a fragile balloon, ready to pop at the slightest touch. All I could manage was a strained smile, my palms clammy against the cool surface of the table. I was drowning in memories, each one like a brick weighing me down. How could I face her? Was she even the same girl I once knew? As Sophie introduced herself to my brother, I felt her aura pull at something deep inside me. The crowded cafe blurred into nothingness. The laughter, the chatter, the clinking of cups faded away. All that mattered was her. Yet there was something uncanny about her. "Have we met before?" she asked, glancing at me as if searching for familiarity. My heart raced. I was terrified. What if she remembered? What if she could see through my facade? "No, I don't think so," I replied, a lump lodged in my throat like a rock. But as I looked into her eyes, I could swear I saw the ghosts of our past lurking, flickers of remembrance that both excited and terrified me. Suddenly, a voice called from the back of the cafe, shattering the moment. An old friend of ours, the kind whose laughter had once filled our shared spaces, was barreling through the door, bringing unexpected chaos along with them. My heart dropped as I realized they were tied to that past, the one I desperately wanted to forget. My brother glanced at me, confusion shadowing his face. "Do you know them?" he asked, but I couldn't respond. My mouth felt dry, my hands trembled at the prospect of old feelings surfacing. I wasn't ready. I had fought so hard to keep her in the past, and now she was here surrounded by fragments of our shared history. With every heartbeat, the tension grew. I watched Sophie's expression shift, the familiar unease settling in. For a moment, she seemed to understand. Before I could catch my breath, she blurted out, "Actually, I think we need to talk." And just like that, the ground beneath us shifted. I stared at her, waiting for the words to spill out, my heart pounding in my chest. What did she mean? What past was about to unravel? Would she shatter the fragile piece I had clung to? The air felt thick with unspoken questions, suffocating, electric. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. The cafe, once alive with murmurs and laughter, now felt like a prison of my own making. Sophie studied me with a look that pierced through the mask I had carefully constructed, and every heartbeat echoed a familiar pain. The world around us faded, leaving just the two of us suspended in the thick tension that had built up like a storm ready to break. She began, hesitating as if the words were tangled in her throat. I could see her grappling with the weight of what she wanted to say, the uncertainty flashing in her eyes as she glanced at my brother, a beacon of naivety in this tangled web. Can we just step outside for a moment? She finally asked, her voice steadying like the calm before the storm. Instinctively, I recoiled. No, I wasn't ready. I had survived too long by avoiding these moments, and now she wanted to rip the bandage off an old wound. Hey, are you two okay? My brother looked between us, naive concern crinkling his brow. I can just give us a minute, I broke in, my voice harsher than intended, but desperation clawed at me. I couldn't allow him to become entangled in this mess. I needed to breathe, to collect my thoughts, to claw back from this emotional precipice. Sophie nodded, and with a tentative smile, she stepped outside without waiting for my answer, her silhouette already fading into the chaotic symphony of the streets. I dragged my fingers through my hair, wishing I could just will this all away. My brother's puzzled expression bore into me. Are you sure you're all right? She's really nice, he said, unknowingly lighting the match to my panic. I forced a smile, but it felt like an imposter on my face. Just give me a moment to gather my thoughts. As he turned back toward the excitement of his phone screen, I took a deep breath, mentally bracing myself before following her outside. The cool air hit me like a slap, grounding me. She stood by the cafe entrance, slightly hunched against the chill, her breath visible in the frigid dusk. Sophie, I started, but she cut me off. Please, just let me speak, she said, her tone firm. My heart raced, caught in a whirlwind of emotions as I studied her face, those familiar features now so beautiful yet foreign, dressed in a cloak of uncertainty. I didn't want this to happen, she continued, her voice trembling slightly. I didn't think I'd see you again, not like this. Can we talk about everything? About us? A lump formed in my throat, the air thick with all the things we had never said, the paths we had chosen that led us in such different directions. But how could we? Could we ever return to the innocent laughter of our past, us? I echoed, the word tasting bitter. There is no us anymore, Sophie. We made sure of that. Tears brimmed in her eyes, but she stood resolute. I know. But things have changed. I have changed. I didn't come here to reignite anything, but to explain. To tell you why I disappeared. Why now? I exclaimed, my emotions flooding like a dam bursting. Why does it feel like all the ghosts of yesterday have come back to haunt me? I've tried to forget. The desperation in my voice hung in the silence, and I could see it reflected in the sorrowful depths of her gaze. I thought I could move on too, she whispered. But every day without you felt like a mistake. That night it completely altered my life. Something shifted within me as she spoke, but just as fury flared, a sliver of understanding nodded with my anguish. We were two souls caught in a web spun by choices made long ago, a silence wrapped around the love that had once burned fierce and bright. So, what? We talk and unravel everything? I challenged her. We dust off the memories where they might shatter everything I've tried to build, maybe. Just then, a shriek broke through the air as laughter tumbled from a group of children nearby, reminding me of the innocence that had once colored our world. For a fleeting moment, I found myself lost in that sound, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. I returned my gaze to Sophie, and I swore I could see the flicker of hope in her eyes, a mirage in the midst of our chaos. The space between us crackled with an electricity I hadn't felt in years. Then, as I opened my mouth to respond, the cafe's door swung open with a bang, my brother's voice calling out to me. Hey! You won't believe who just walked in. Curiosity broke the tension like glass shattering, and I instinctively turned to look. But there, standing in the doorway, was a figure that twisted my stomach into knots, an old friend from our shared past, one whose presence threatened to drag recent turmoil into the depths of everything we had tried to escape. How is this possible? I whispered under my breath, my heart racing and my stomach lurching as I faced this arrival, an unforeseen variable set to rewrite our uncertain narrative. Sophie's face mirrored mine as realization dawned on us both. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the catalyst for everything we'd hoped to avoid. Things are about to get complicated, I muttered, the weight of the past crashing down, and in that moment, I knew without a doubt I had stepped into a tempest with Sophie at the eye, and all our unfinished business swirling around us. The cold air wrapped around us, a heavy burden against the sting of nostalgia that filled the space. I felt Sophie's gaze glued to me, both of us aware that the past was clawing its way back into our lives. The figure in the doorway didn't move, just stood there like a specter raised from the depths of our shared history. Leo, I breathed, the name slipping from my lips without thought. My childhood friend, no, more than a friend, he was the glue that had held our chaotic trio together, but also the needle that had sown the seeds of our separation. He had strayed too close to Sophie once, and we'd all paid the price. Wow, Leo said, his voice slicing through the tension. Didn't expect to find you two here. He grinned, but his eyes were sharp, searching, assessing. Sophie turned pale, caught in a web of her own feelings, the trembling edge of uncertainty back on her face. Leo, she managed, a breath escaping her lips. The dalliance of familiarity between them was thicker than the air, dredging up memories I hadn't wanted to confront. Are you with him? Leo asked, a note of misplaced bravado in his tone, as if his heart had suddenly caught on the wind and was struggling to right itself. The question hung heavy, heavy like the secrets we all carried. I felt Sophie tense beside me, her body language shifting into something guarded, and it fueled the anger roaring beneath my skin. This isn't what it looks like, I interjected, trying to defend the fragile space we had created, only for the confession to feel hopeless, desperate, much like our fractured friendship once had been. Looks like you're rekindling old connections, Leo shot back, his tone shifting from casual to pointed, eyes narrowing. Leo, that's not fair, Sophie said, her voice trembling again, this time more assertively. We were just. Do you see what you're doing? I cut in, eyes flaring as the anger bubbled over into defensiveness. You're more concerned about how it looks than what actually is. Enough. Leo barked, his words crashing down like rain in a storm. This isn't just about you two. I have my own stakes in this. Stakes? I spit, the word feeling harsh and hollow, the truth of it cracking under the pressure of what lay behind those eyes: betrayal, resentment, heartbreak. Just like you did before. You don't get to play moral guardian now, not when you've walked away so many times. The silence that followed was deafening, laden with the ghost of everything unspoken. Leo shifted uncomfortably, his bravado diminishing as hurt replaced anger. I'm just trying to understand, he finally muttered, the edges of his statement softening. Sophie squeezed her eyes shut, the weight of the moment seemingly becoming too much to bear. I reached out, longing to bridge the divide formed by the pasta reflex instinct that took me by surprise. But she sidestepped my offer, opening her eyes anew, determination flooding her voice. What happened back then can't define who we are now. Is that true? Leo asked, doubt lacing his words. Can you really untangle years of history like that? He glanced at me, a silent challenge hovering in the air. He knew too well the scars we all bore. I don't know, I confessed, the truth a sharper blade than I had anticipated. But right now, I want to try. For myself, for you. Sophie looked at me then, something tender flashing through the storm. Then we need to be honest, all of us. No more running from this. But just then, a commotion erupted from behind the cafe, drawing all our attention. An older gentleman stumbled out, clearly heated, disputing something with the staff. Surrounded by a blur of chaos, he raised his voice, shouting into the night about lost belongings. Let's just go inside, Leo suggested hastily, the distraction breaking the mounting tension. I could see the moment we all decided collectively to step back from confronting the wreckage our lives had become, seeking refuge in the familiar confines of the cafe, but as we retreated, I felt a distinct shift in the atmosphere, a loitering feeling of inevitability, as though we were stepping into a trap that would snap shut around us at any moment. I tried to tune out my racing thoughts as we re-entered, the warm air colliding with the chill from outside there. In the distant corner, my brother sat like a lighthouse amidst the fog, absorbed in his phone, oblivious to the currents shifting around him, and then I saw a message on my brother's screen, bright against the dark world we were trapped in. "You should come back. Things will be different this time." My heart dropped. The message wasn't just any statement, it accompanied a name I recognized all too well, a name that belonged in the pages of a past I had desperately tried to erase. Everything within me bloomed into a panic, a dawning realization enveloping me. "Wait, who is that?" I stammered, my voice faltering while the world twisted around us, destiny pushing us closer to an unknown reckoning. And amidst the turmoil, I felt it a shiver of hope intertwined with dread, a flicker in the depth sensing that whatever was coming would challenge all our notions of resilience. I glanced at Sophie. We stood on the edge of a precipice, unraveling or uniting, and I didn't know which path would lead to promise or pain. The cafe buzzed with the hum of contented voices, but within its cozy confines, I felt a storm brewing. My brother's screen flickered like a beacon, the message blooming sinisterly in my mind. "You should come back. Things will be different this time." Each word felt like a laceration against my resolve, unraveling the threads of hope I had begun to weave. "Who is that?" I repeated, urgency sparking in my chest as I stepped closer to my brother. He looked up, momentarily startled, before glancing apologetically at Sophie and Leo, as if they were intruding on our private moment. "Just someone from a while ago," he replied, his nonchalance unconvincing as I seized hold of the edge of the table for stability. "I thought maybe you'd want to know." "No," I said, shaking my head fiercely. "You don't get to just drop that on me. You always." My voice faltered, the swell of emotion rendering me vulnerable. I glanced at Sophie, who stood frozen, caught between the collision of our pasts and the fragile beginnings of whatever was forming between us now. "It's not that simple, Leo," I continued, taking a step back to distance myself from the turmoil of my thoughts. "You have no idea what we went through or what this could mean. Trust me," he said, his tone softening. "I do. But you deserve to have a say in what's next, too." There was a sincerity in his eyes, and for a moment, I felt the shift, the delicate stitching of brotherhood trying to mend amid all the threads of pain. Sophie broke the silence, her voice a gentle tremor that reached into the core of my tumultuous heart. "Do you really want to go back there?" she asked, her gentle inquiry imbued with concern, as if she could sense the whisperings of ghosts, lingering where we couldn't see. My chest tightened. The answer hovered just out of reach, entwined with every betrayal and heartache that had led us to this moment. "No," I caught myself, searching for the strength to keep my words steady. "But it feels like they won't leave me alone." Leo's brow furrowed, and he glanced at Sophie before looking back at me. "Then what do you want? Seriously, what do you want?" For what felt like an eternity, my gaze shifted from the ground to the window, watching the world outside pulse with life. It brought forth a truth, raw and seeping, something I had tried to hold at bay. "I want to heal," I murmured, the admission escaping my lips like a prayer. "But how can I when the past keeps calling me back?" In that moment, Sophie reached for my hand. Her touch was unexpectedly grounding, as if she understood the depths of my conflict without me having to lay it all bare. I turned to her, my pulse quickening at her palpable warmth, the small island of trust amidst the crashing waves of resurfacing pain. "And how do we do that together?" "By being honest with one another," she replied, a quiet strength rising in her voice. "And by facing what lies ahead, not shying away from it." "Even if that means confronting Leo?" I asked, half in jest, but there was weight beneath the humor. The air thickened, letting my unspoken grievances float into existence like dark clouds over sunny skies. "You both need to decide what this means," Leo intervened, his expression more serious now. I might have been the catalyst for everything, but the choice of whether to linger in those shadows or step into the light is yours. But what if the light only leads us further into darkness? I countered, my trepidation bubbling again to the surface. Just then, an unexpected chorus of laughter erupted from the table across the room, drawing our attention. A couple seated nearby exchanged playful banter. The contrast of their joy to our tumult struck me harder than ever. "Look at them," I murmured. "They don't know the baggage we carry. They're happy." For a brief moment, the noise of the world drowned out my thoughts, leaving me in a state of yearning. At that very instant, from my peripheral vision, I noticed a figure standing by the entrancia woman, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, pausing right in the doorway. She looked familiar, and my heart dropped as I recognized her. It was someone from our past, a woman whose name had threaded through our lives like a silent echo of heartbreak. "Sarah," I breathed, the word like a gust of wind through a cracked window, ushering in the chill of forgotten memories. I turned to Leo and Sophie, their lines of confusion and fear mirroring my internal chaos. "What is she doing here?" As Sarah stepped forward, energy shifted in the room, laced with an electric tension, the creaking hinge of fate swaying toward a pivotal moment. My past was crashing violently back to reclaim its hold over my life, and I had a sinking feeling that the arrival of this person heralded the unraveling of everything we had just started to rebuild. Awaiting her words, sorrow and anger entwined, I stood griping firmly at the threads of my life, trembling on the edge of choices yet to be made. In that moment of unexpected revelation, I felt the heavy hand of destiny draw us all into a grip of uncertainty. Would we rise together, fighting against the specters of our yesterdays, or falter fractured, irrevocably lost? The jangle of the cafe's doorbell turned my heart to lead as Sarah stepped inside, her aura bringing a distinct chill that contrasted sharply with the warmth of shared laughter around us. It was as if someone had pulled the life out of the air. Every familiar trait, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the softness of her gaze, the sadness that seemed to nestle comfortably in her eyes brought back a flood of memories I had thought were safely buried. "Sarah," my voice trembled slightly, caught somewhere between confusion and dread. She locked eyes with me, and the weight of unspoken histories wrapped around us like a heavy fog. The remnants of our past buzzed like angry bees, threatening to dissolve the fragile peace I had fought so hard to create. "Hey," she said, her tone soft yet laced with an edge of uncertainty. It unsettled me, forcing me to reckon with the ghosts I had hoped would never resurface. "What are you doing here?" I asked, striving to keep my expression neutral while panic skittered through my chest. She faltered, her gaze flitting to Leo, then Sophie, who still held my hand as if to anchor me. "I didn't mean to intrude. I was just passing by." "From this way?" I challenged, skepticism fueling the fire of my bewilderment. "I thought I'd try this place. It's supposed to have the best coffee in town," she replied, her eyes dropping to the floor as if they bore the weight of unspoken regrets. I could hardly reconcile the present Sarah with the girl I had once known, bold, vibrant, capable of drawing people into her world with a few well-chosen words. "Careful, the coffee can really stir echoes," Leo chimed, his attempt at levity hanging awkwardly in the air. I noticed the subtle tension in his muscles, an instinctive protective stance, perhaps wary of the memories she brought along. "Listen, I didn't want to run into you," Sarah continued, a weak attempt at humor failing to mask her discomfort. "This just happened." Not wanting to have a public confrontation, I instinctively stepped back, creating a buffer of space between us. "Why now? Why show up when everything is fragile?" My voice cracked, betraying the tumult beneath my composed facade that I didn't know. Her voice was a bare whisper, a seed of guilt woven through the fabric of tragedy we once shared. "I'm just here to visit a friend." "I didn't realize your visits always seem to come with a storm," I shot back, not fully registering the pain in my words until it had escaped. "Can't you just leave the past buried where it belongs?" Sophie's hand tightened around mine, an effort to offer support in a moment when the walls of my carefully constructed emotional shelter were crumbling. "We can just walk away," she whispered, sounding unsure if it were truly a feasible option. No, I breathed, feeling an undercurrent of something deeper, obligation, perhaps, or a need to face the embodiment of my past directly. If we're going to make any progress, we need to confront this. Leo glanced between us before facing Sarah, a resolute anger settling into his features. If you came for closure, or whatever you think this is, you've picked the wrong time and place. Actually, I came to look for you. Sarah's sudden declaration hung in the air, thickening it with shock. I felt time around us grinding to a halt as she continued. I needed to apologize for the way things ended. My heart raced, not with hope, but with confusion. Apologize? You think that's enough? Maybe not, she said, her voice breaking slightly. But I thought you deserved to know that I was wrong. I never wanted to hurt you like I did. No one wants to hurt anyone, but it seems we find ourselves somehow orchestrating our own tragedies. I turned my gaze sharply from her, unable to handle the vulnerability that her words threatened to unearth. Sophie stepped in, her voice steady yet gentle, a beacon among stormy seas. Maybe it's not about rehashing the past, Sarah. Maybe it's about how we move forward. Sarah's face seemed to soften for a moment, as if the weight of her past transgressions mingled with hope puffs along her lashes. I just want to be back in the light. Like the way we were. I want to try to make things right. Anger and longing twisted together in equal measure within me. 1,000 memories cried out, shattering the fragile calm of the cafe as the invisible barrier between past and present blurred. What if being back in the light means turning our backs on everything we've fought for? You're not the only one who has carried pain, she countered, but the conviction in her voice lacked substance. With every breath, I could feel the ties to my past tightening like a noose around my heart. Suddenly, I didn't know who I was supposed to protect anymore. The tangled threads of my life knotted tighter, and I realized there was nothing to do but pull at them until something gave, until everything shattered, revealing what lay underneath. As silence hung heavy in the air, I didn't notice Leo stepping forward until I heard him speak. And what if this moment, this very one, can redefine everything? I don't want you to hurt anymore either, but we have to make choices without turning back now. Sarah swallowed, gazing between us, the despair of choices lost reflected in her eyes. Maybe we have to lose ourselves before we can find a way to save each other or ourselves. At that moment, I felt the unyielding pull of fate threatening to create a rift within me. Was Sarah telling the truth? Was there a way out of the shadows? Or had her very presence summoned all that we feared, demanding we confront it with open hearts? Just when I thought I had gripped the truth tight enough to hold, the jingling of the cafe door startled us all, but it was the sight of another familiar face that shattered my equilibrium completely. It was David, my childhood friend, now looking more like a ghost from my dreams than a person from reality, and I was struck dumb with the realization that he came with a familiar, yet deeply troubling urgency. Have you heard? David shouted, striding toward us with wildfire in his eyes. They're back. The family you thought you'd left behind, they're coming for you. Time froze, and with that one revelation, the fragile pieces of my newly forming world tipped into chaos once more. Every breath felt laden with fear, and as the weight of truth choked the hopeful whispers I'd begun to believe, I realized, the past wasn't done with me yet. The air grew thick with disbelief as David's words echoed in the cafe, hitting me like a sudden gust of cold wind that sawed through the warmth of the moment we had just started to reconstruct. I saw Sarah's face drain of color, her mouth slightly agape as if the very concept of my past was a bitter taste she couldn't swallow. What do you mean they're back? I stuttered, barely containing the tremor that laced my voice. My body felt heavy like I was trudging through thick mud. Who's back? Your family, David said, urgency strumming every note in his voice. They've been asking around town, trying to find you. I'm sorry, it's all coming back. No, I whispered, shaking my head. They can't. I left. I cut ties. They can't come back into my life. Sophie's grip tightened around my hand. What does this mean for you? For us? She asked, the uncertainty layering her words, cracking through the normally solid surface of her confidence. We need to understand what they want, Leo urged, his voice calmer than I felt. But whatever it is, well, face it together. You don't understand, I countered, feeling the past swell like an incoming tide. They're toxic. They don't want me, they want control. They think they can pull me back in whenever they feel like it. Chaos erupted in my chest, shadows of memories racing through my mind, the hollering, the neglected pleas for understanding, the suffocating expectations. They were a part of my life I thought I had left behind forever. Sarah, lost in her own shock, finally broke the silence. I thought it was over for you. I thought they couldn't hurt you anymore. Her words were meant to comfort, I knew that. But they felt like a cruel reminder of what had once bound us together, the shared pain, the collection of abuse neither one of us could quite escape. A pain we had walked away from, swearing never to return. I can't go back to that. Not now, not ever, I insisted, feeling the weight of my promise hanging in the air. The burgeoning hope that had flickered in Sarah's eyes began to dim, her vulnerability laid bare as we stood on the precipice of dread. Maybe you don't have to do this alone, Leo asserted, and I saw him move closer to me, his presence a protective shield against the march of the past. Alone? I regurgitated the word with disdain. I haven't been alone, I've been surviving, existing, maybe, but this threat, it shatters whatever fragile footing I'd managed to find. Then don't face it alone, David urged again, his expression earnest. It'll help, I swear. We can figure this out. I know they've resurfaced, but we have ways. We've protected each other before. We can do it again, David. There's nothing you can do, I began to argue, the weight of trepidation bubbling in my throat. But then Leo intertwined his fingers with mine, grounding me in the present, and I felt the flicker of his hope ignite an ember within me. Maybe he's right. You can't go back down that road by yourself, he offered quietly. But you don't have to choose to fight alone. I'll stand with you, the supportive energy radiating from Sophie and Leo coiled around my heart, drawing me back from the abyss of despair. For a fleeting moment, the fear lessened, replaced with an aching mixture of gratitude and dread. Why now? I challenged David, needing to understand more. Why would they come back now, after all this time? He shifted uncomfortably, and the tension in his voice underscored the weight of his answer. I don't know. But I overheard something. They're looking for something or someone, and it seems you might be key to whatever they've planned. What could I possibly have that they want? Each word felt like a scramble of broken glass, shattering whatever semblance of peace I'd managed to grasp. They think, David hesitated, and I saw the fear flicker behind his eyes. They think you could lead them back to something they lost. Something dangerous. The obscured meaning behind his words drew a stark realization. The truth of my past was sprouting into a new, ugly cycle, demanding to be recognized or faced, and as fear tightened its grip over me, I choked back panic, determined not to break. I can't be part of that. I stated firmly, the resolve hardening in my voice. But David shook his head. It may not be a choice to make anymore. In that moment of swirling emotion, a maelstrom of sorrow, anger, and heartbreak, a comforting yet terrible thought nestled itself in the corners of my mind. How far were they willing to go to retrieve what they sought? What are they willing to sacrifice? I murmured, a tremor of realization rooting me to the spot. The clamor of the cafe dulled into silence, and I could feel the weight of suspicion and despair echoing around us. There was no denying that whatever shadows of my past had gathered might also snuff out the candle of hope flickering in my heart, even as Sarah took a step closer, curiosity and concern warring in her delicate features. What if this is larger than us? She whispered, vulnerability etched deep into her voice. What if they know something about the past we thought we left behind? Above the noise of my fear, her words struck a hidden chord, rippling through the fragile web of connections I still clung to. My heart raced with the weight of the quiet challenge rippling around, pulling together past and present in one painful confrontation, teetering on the edge of revelation. Before I had a chance to respond, the cafe door jangled again, and as I turned, I found myself staring straight into eyes I thought I'd never see again. Me brother, the embodiment of my heartbreak, standing in the doorway with uncertainty etched into his expression, and I could feel the fragile threads of my past begin to fray, ready to unravel completely. The familiar weight of my brother's presence was both an anchor and an electric shock. The moment our eyes locked, I felt the world around me blur, dissolving into a haze of old memories and bitter moments I thought were long buried. The cafe's warmth faded, replaced by a chilling sense of exposure, as if every unresolved issue from our shared past was suddenly laid bare, open for dissection. "Jake," I whispered, the word escaping my lips with a mix of longing and dread. He stood frozen at the door, the slight tightening of his jaw betraying the emotions roiling beneath his calm exterior. "Sarah," he said with a nod, but his gaze lingered on me, brimming with questions I wasn't sure I had the answers to. The tension in the cafe was palpable. I could feel every eye in the room darting between us like spectators at a tragic play, witnessing the standoff that had begun long before this day. "What are you doing here?" I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. Each word was a thin veil over my apprehension, the knife of past hurts threatening to cut deeper. Jake stepped inside slowly, as if he were afraid to disturb something fragile. I came to talk," he replied, sounding hesitant, his usual bravado replaced by a hint of uncertainty. "Things have changed since everything blew up?" I interrupted, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You mean since you turned your back on me? It's not that simple," he said, his voice low, and something in his tone caught my attention, a flicker of sincerity that prompted me to evaluate my first instinct defensiveness. "Then explain it to me," I urged, but the rawness of the memories crashed over me like waves, filling me with a tumult of anger and sadness. David, sensing the shifting dynamics, took a half-step closer to me, and I could feel Leo's reassuring grip at my side. Their shared strength enveloped me, a thread of hope in a moment teetering on despair that I didn't know they were back. Jake confessed, his eyes searching mine. I only heard whispers. I didn't want to believe it, but here we are, I finished for him, bitterness creeping into my voice. "After all those years of silence, just when I thought I had finally escaped it, that I came to help," he said, his words clumsy yet earnest. "Things are complicated, Emma. You have to trust me." "Trust?" The word tasted bitter on my tongue. Trust had been sewn into our lives like a tapestry, only for it to be ripped apart so carelessly. I could feel Sarah's questioning gaze on me, the concern brewing beneath her own uncertainties. "Jake," I began again, softer this time, my voice almost pleading. "What do you know that I don't? I can't explain every detail right now," he answered, glancing around the cafe as if the burden of the revelation weighed heavily on him. He took a deep breath, his expression shifting into something more serious. "But I need you to know that they're planning something. It goes beyond just wanting you back." At that moment, shadows stretched across my heart, tightening around it painfully. "What do you mean?" I pushed instinctively, sensing that we were standing on the tipping point of something ominous. "They believe you hold answers," Jake replied, his eyes darkening. "Something about a family secret, something they think could ruin everything if it comes to light." "Secrets? You can't be serious." Panic flared in my chest. The very notion of unraveling the shreds of my past felt like a gaping wound that had long scabbed over. I had fought so hard to heal, I wasn't sure I could bear the anguish of it all again. "We have to gather the rest of the family," Jake insisted. "You and we need to work together. They think they can control this, but they don't understand we can be stronger together." As he spoke, I could see the flicker of hope reigniting behind his eyes, the glimmer of potential for reconciliation. The longing for those easy childhood days swept over me like a tidal wave, the memories of laughter and warmth battling against the harsh realities we had endured, and yet, doubt clawed at me, threatening to rip open the door I had tried to seal shut. "What if they find us first?" I murmured, fear tangling with the prospect of facing my family's turbulent past that I had tried so hard to leave behind. In that moment of gathering storm, the atmosphere in the cafe seemed to thicken. I glanced at Sarah, her face a mix of surprise and worry, her grip wavering as if she sensed the gust of emotional upheaval about to strike again. Before I could redirect the conversation, a sudden commotion erupted from the back of the cafe, drawing every eye as a stranger burst through the Crodan unfamiliar face with a steely intent, a scowl creasing his brow. "Where is she?" he called out, piercing through the muted panic surrounding us. "Where's Emma?" I felt the blood rush from my face. As if sensing the sudden shift, everyone whipped back to me, the room boiling over with sound and chaos, gripping my heart with a visceral force that demanded to be recognized, and then everything spiraled. The stranger's fury was palpable, weaving danger into the air, reviving all that I thought I had locked away. I turned to Jake, the question forming unvoiced in my eyes: how far would they really go to find me? As I stood there, caught in the heart of this tempest, I realized the past had not just returned, it was demanding attention, threatening to enact a reckoning I was desperately trying to avoid. The chaos in the cafe was suffocating, the air dense with unspoken fears and frantic whispers. I felt the heat of the stranger's unrelenting gaze like a physical weight pressing against my chest. I gripped the table, trying to steady myself as the ground seemed to shake beneath my feet. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, every syllable strained through my trembling voice. My heart raced, pounding a frantic rhythm that mirrored my escalating dread. The stranger took a step forward, eyes locked onto mine, every word laced with urgency. "You don't need to play coy, Emma. I know you're in here. Your family wants you back." His proclamation hit me like a slap, raw and shocking. I exchanged a glance with Jake, whose expression morphed from surprise to steely determination as he moved defensively in front of me. "Back off," he warned, his voice calm but firm, the tension coiling tighter around us like an invisible noose. "Stay out of this," the stranger retorted, dismissing Jake with a wave of his hand. His eyes bored into mine again, relentless and unyielding. "You think you can run from them? They'll find you, and it won't be pretty." Dread curled in my stomach like a vine of despair. The reality of who the stranger represented crashed over me like a freezing wave, awakening every forgotten fear I thought washed away. It was not just my brother's presence that had dragged me back to this terrifying reckoning, it was a reminder that my family's reach was long and merciless. "Listen," the man continued, his voice low and conspiratorial, "they won't stop until they have what they want. You have answers, whether you remember them or not. You're the key to all of this, and they've dug up the past for a reason." My mind raced. What answers could I possibly hold? Secrets buried in the darkest corners of my childhood, dreams crafted from bitterness and heartache, the very things I had tried to erase from my life. Yet here I was, standing at the precipice of it all, the abyss beckoning me forward with a twisted allure. "Jake, we can't," I urged, my voice barely a whisper. "If they're coming for me, it's not just about us." Anna Marie, it could be dangerous, but Jake's eyes, once filled with uncertainty, were now ignited with resolve. "We can't let them intimidate us, Emma. We face this together. I'll protect you no matter what." My pulse quickened, caught in the storm between hope and fear. There was something palpable in his determination that reignited a flicker of warmth inside me, reminiscent of the bond we once shared, a bond frayed but not completely severed. "Step away from her." David's voice echoed with authority, breaking through the haze of anxiety, but the stranger only laughed, a harsh, feral sound that sent a chill skittering along my spine. "You think you can protect her?" His gaze darted to David, dismissing him as a mere child trying to shield a precious toy. "This isn't just a game. You think you know what's at stake, but you have no idea." An icy knot twisted deep in my gut, thickening the air around us with the weight of impending darkness. I glanced at Sarah, who stood wide-eyed, caught between concern and confusion, her silent question for me clear. What was going on? I summoned a faint smile, holding it as a fragile shield against the uncertainty welling within me. "Let's just talk about this," I proposed, my voice wavering but laced with authority. "Why don't you tell us what you know?" For a brief moment, the stranger hesitated, indecision flickering across his features as if my words cracked the steely resolve around his anger. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, weighing the pros and cons of divulging information or maintaining his fierce facade. My family didn't choose this path," he finally began, and I felt the unexpected twinge of empathy thread through my fear. "But I can't let them do what they're planning. You might hold the only answer to stop it." "What do you mean?" I pressed, desperate to glean any insight. the urgency of the moment pressing against my mind. What kind of planning? He met my eyes with a fierce intensity, a flicker of something vulnerable breaking through the bravado. They think you have a piece of information, something that could spark a war between families. You could be stronger than they realize, but you have to trust us, trust. The word hung in the air like a noose, tightening around all of us. Here was a man who had entered my life as a storm, yet a small part of me wondered if he was offering a lifeline amid the encroaching darkness. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. It was Leo, his expression a mixture of concern and fierce protectiveness. You can't talk to him. We don't know where his loyalty lies. Frustration bubbled within me, tinged with the fear of losing the opportunity to unlock truths hidden away for too long. But this is our chance, Leo. We can't turn away from it now. As chaos swirled and tension contorted our faces, reality crashed heavily around us. The intimacy of our making peace with the past clashed violently with the stark reality building outside, an impending storm as I stood caught between loyalty and fear, trust and betrayal, and just as silence descended, another voice broke through, a chilling reminder that safety was an illusion. You're all so naive, the stranger hissed, drawing himself up with sudden ferocity. You think you can reshape the past? They'll come for you, Emma. And when they do, suddenly, his words echoed with a promise of sinister consequences that felt like a clock ticking down to something monumental, a web of fate steadily tightening. I could feel the walls closing in, and each heartbeat pounded in my ears the promise of a storm that had barely begun to unfurl its wrath. Clenching my fists, I steeled myself against the tide of uncertainty. What do we do now? I asked, my voice trembling but fierce with resolve, knowing the answer would dictate not just my fate, but the fates of those around me, and inexplicably, as I turned to Jake, I saw something that froze my heart, a flicker of recognition passing behind his eyes, revealing old secrets I had long forgotten. What had I truly buried? And was it too late to uncover the truth? The cafe grew eerily quiet, our breath held tight within the fragile web of uncertainty. I could feel the warmth of Jake's body beside me, his solidity a comfort, yet fear gnawed at my insides, birthing ghosts I thought I'd laid to rest long ago. The stranger's words reverberated through the silence, the weight of his warning a palpable force. I inclined my head slightly, almost pleading for him to elaborate. What do you mean by they'll come for me? I asked, my heart drumming in my chest like a warning siren. His gaze shifted over the group, settling at last on me, a mix of insight and pity flickering in his dark eyes. They want to bury the past, Emma. You'd be surprised at how many will go to any lengths to silence the truth. As the words sank in, I locked eyes with Jake, who stood just a breath away. I searched his face for comfort, but found turmoil etched into his brow. It struck me then that we were on the precipice of something dire, something that would alter the course of our lives irrevocably. Just as I moved to respond, Sarah chimed in, her voice a bright beacon amid the darkness. What if we just walked away from all of this? I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I don't want to get involved in anything dangerous. There was a firmness in her voice, as though she was trying to anchor herself in the storm brewing all around us. I felt a stab of guilt for dragging her into this mess, but there was a deeper part of me that recognized the fear of letting go of the looming specter of my past. That we can't just run, I said emphatically. I have to know what they want with me. If it's true, if I hold something, if things from my childhood could threaten us. I swallowed, the enormity of it slicing through my resolve like a knife. The stranger's demeanor softened slightly, as though my fear was a mirror, and he was forced to confront his own. I'm not here to hurt you, Emma. Whether you believe me or not, I want to help. Leo remained skeptical, his protective instincts surging to the forefront. How can we trust you? You waltzed in here out of nowhere, spouting riddles instead of answers. What's your real agenda? I could feel the tension coalesce, filling the air with oppressive weight. If we were to untangle my mysterious past, we first had to face this unwelcome stranger. The room pulsated with a strange energy, each heartbeat a ticking clock, the promise of something ominous gathering just beyond our reach. I need you to trust me, the stranger said, a weariness creeping into his voice. They'll act soon, and when they do, it'll be too late for all of us. In that instant, a profound realization struck me. At the height of my anxiety, standing before this feline predator, something inside met that flicker of hope spoke out, whispering of the strength I once had and had almost forgotten. What if I could unlock what's hidden in my past? What then? The gravity of my words seemed to break the tension momentarily, and a tentative inquiry filled the space between us, like a dog sniffing the air to gauge the scent of danger. I turned to Jake, his expression shifting in contemplation as we both wrestled with the enormity of what was being unfurled before us. If it means not just for me, but for all of us, then we have to at least try, I murmured, a spark igniting in my chest. For years I had run, but perhaps confronting the specters of my childhood was how I could reclaim my life, take hold of the reins instead of letting them drag me back down the abyss. That I am not letting you face this alone, Jake said, determination lacing his tone again. The warmth of his support sparked a sudden revelation. I had never truly acknowledged my connection with him, the history we shared, even the heartbreak that bound us, but before I could respond, before we could collect our thoughts or feelings, a loud crash erupted from the back of the coffee, a whirlwind of commotion that shattered our fragile sanctuary. We spun around to find the kitchen door flung open, and chaos erupted as patrons scattered in all directions. Amidst the chaos, a hooded figure emerged, moving like a shadow through the din, and I could feel a shiver snake its way down my spine. Adrenaline surged within me, the conflicting desire to confront my fears clashing violently with the instinct to flee. Emma. The stranger's voice pierced through the roar, urgency now palpable. They're here. We don't have much time. Panic seized my heart as I felt all eyes on me, the walls of the cafe feeling painfully constricting. I locked gazes with Jake, his face a map of concern, and for the first time, I understood the depths of the peril we were facing. As the hooded figure approached, the world narrowed down to one pivotal truth: answers lay ahead, yet so did danger, and I had to choose now. With a deep breath, I summoned all the courage I could muster. We stand together or we fall apart, I whispered, knowing the path awaited us would test our bond to its core. Just as I turned toward the stranger who had stirred the cauldron of my past, the hooded figure revealed himself, a face that sent ice through my veins, a visage peering into my memories like an unwelcome visitor. Emma, it's time to come home, he said, voice stirring echoes from the edges of my childhood, a door creaking open to promises I never thought to confront. And at that moment, I realized, as much as I wanted to run from it all, I was not just running away from my past, I was running toward it. In the thick tension of the cafe, time hung suspended as my heart raced in tandem with elation and dread. It was a surreal cocktail, intoxicating and terrifying, like confronting a tidal wave head-on. The familiar face before me was an omen of the chaos I was desperately trying to escape. The memories surged back, bittersweet echoes reminding me of laughter mingled with tears. Home? I scoffed, my voice trembling with disbelief. That place is anything but home. You think I'll just waltz back into the arms of a family that shattered my soul? I felt angry tears boiling beneath the surface, unraveling the calm veneer I had so painstakingly crafted. I was done running, done slipping into the shadows, but uncertainty still coiled tightly around my heart. The hooded figure stepped closer, the shadows shifting around him, and when he pulled the hood off, gasps erupted throughout the cafe. My breath caught in my throat, his eyes matched the color of the clear ocean I once swam in, but they were clouded with burdens I couldn't fathom. Emma, you don't understand, he said urgently, his voice barely above a whisper. They're closer than you realize. They will come for you. You're all that stands in the way of them reclaiming their power. His sentiment tugged at a long-forgotten connection, one that anchored me despite the waves of despair that he gestured around. Stricken realization hitting me, fear resided in every eye around me, but it was my family he spoke of, looming like a specter, ready to descend upon our world like locusts on a summer's field. Who? I pressed, desperation punctuating my words. Who are you talking about? They've been searching for you, Emma, he persisted, the sincerity in his tone shifting the air around us. They believe you possess something of value or knowledge that could tip the balance of power. Use this time wisely, or they will take everything from you once again. An unsettled quiet fell over us, the cafe muffled and shrouded in uncertainty. I glanced at Jake, David, Sarah, and Leo. Their faces wore the marks of shared anxiety, yet I could sense an ember of determination stirring within them, a spark that slowly began to glow brighter amidst the chaos. "You don't have to face them alone, you have us," Jake said, stepping closer as if to shield me from the storm. I could see the determination in his eyes, reassuring yet urging me to realize the gravity of our past's grip on our present. As we stood there, a collective bond began to weave between us, threading through all the remnants of our shattered history. Suddenly, it clicked: this was our moment. No more silence. No more running. The shadows that had chased us for years wouldn't be vanquished by retreating. Instead, it was time I molded my past into something new. "Then come with me," I said, my voice rising with unexpected resolve. "If they want a war, well, give them one, but we will do it under our terms." I felt the rush of adrenaline clawing my insides, filling me with a fierce determination that I hadn't known since the last time I felt like I belonged. The hooded figure nodded, a glimmer of pride flickering in his eyes. "Good, I knew you had it in you. But first, we need to talk about the truth buried deep in your family history, the secrets, the lies." In that moment, it was as if the air shifted, the burden of our shared traumas intertwining with our resolve. Together, we began to sketch the outline of a plan, one fueled by the strength of bonds long fractured but now entwined, rooting us firmly against the encroaching tide. As we plotted and figured out what to say and how to confront the demons of our past, the cafe transformed from a mere background into a sanctuary, a place of defiance against the chaos lurking outside. I locked eyes with each persona, promise, a pact, a determination to fight, and in the midst of the brewing storm, as laughter echoed softly from the corners where patrons resumed their casual conversations, I realized that I was finally stepping into my own light, ready to break free of the chains that had bound me for far too long. With this shared purpose illuminating our path, I breathed in deeply, and let the warmth of our connection surge through me. This was our moment, a reckoning born out of choice, fueled by resilience. And as we moved toward the door, toward the turmoil that awaited us, I felt the cords of the past beginning to fray, replaced by the bonds of newfound strength. I had released the anchor of heartache, allowing the winds of courage to carry us into the unknown, willing to face the family that had once torn us apart. In that moment, confidence surged through me as I turned back to the figure whose presence had compelled the battle. "If we're going to do this, let's do it together," I declared, a fierce light igniting within. For the truth, for healing, for reclaiming our lives. And as we stepped out into the wild reality awaiting us, a unified front, I whispered a prayer to the universe, a hope that maybe we would emerge from the darkness into something brighter, a legacy of our own choosing, where the past would no longer define us, but instead serve as a powerful testament to our journey, echoing resilience and renewal beneath each step we took. Together, we would rewrite the narrative. Together, we would face whatever came our way. And for the first time, I felt the intoxicating surge of possibility wash over my heart. With one last glance at my family's tumultuous shadows, I breathed out the haunting remnants of ghosts past, ready to embrace the path laid before us, a path of healing, forgiveness, and empowerment. And it was in that unwavering resolve, bound by the fierce love and loyalty we now shared, I realized. The past had shaped our hearts, but it would not dictate our futures.